Well, good morning, everyone. I think it's the top of the hour. My name's Janice Farah. I want to welcome you for joining us today for the CASAS National News and Updates webinar. Today is October 21st, and we have a nice agenda prepared for you, where we have presenters including Linda Taylor from CASAS. She's Vice President of Assessment Development. We also have two of our colleagues from Campbell Adult and Community Education, Dr. Usha Narayanan and Karen Weldon. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. We look forward to your presentation today about accommodating, retaining, and supporting students. We also have Karen Berger, who will be presenting about our field testing, and she's our coordinator for that. And Dawn Montgomery will be talking about our technology training department. I'm going to put in the chat really quickly where to go to grab a copy of today's presentations. Next slide, please, or are we going to wait just a little bit? Funny thing about Zoom webinars, it just seems that the participants kind of come in a slow dribble sometimes, but we're going to go over some of the basics. These are the 4 points that we've discussed before, so none of this should be new. First bullet point is your microphones are muted. That's because this is a big group of people. So if you wish to speak, probably the best way to communicate to us, to the presenters, questions related to the presentation, those belong in the box called Q&A. So if you include your name and your email in the post, if we get a little bit behind, we'll be able to follow up with you afterwards and answer your questions. Another thing we do is we take the Q&A and we add it to our frequently asked questions. So you may see a question that you posed today end up on the CASAS website later this week. Finally, the chat box is good for technical difficulties. If you run into a problem with Zoom, we have CASAS employees who are available to help you with that. If you haven't had a chance to download a copy of the webinar, the PowerPoints today, those are here in the link on bullet point number 4. Well, here's a little graphic that just describes using a Zoom webinar. I bet most of you have used Zoom lots and lots and lots the last 6 months. A Zoom webinar is slightly different than a Zoom meeting in that it has what the green bubble is pointing to, which is the Q&A box. And as I mentioned before, we're going to use that for questions about the presentations or a question that you'd like to direct to the presenters. And looking at the other 3 bullets going from left to right, the audio settings button is for checking what's going on with your microphone and your speakers, and you can make adjustments to that. The second blue bubble talks about using the chat, and we're just going to use that today, please, only for technical issues, or if you have a message that you want to greet all your, I see a lot of you are posting in the chat. Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon to you as well. We will not be using the raise hand feature. That's a little tricksy when there's this many attendees. So please go to the Q&A box to list your questions about the presentation or questions specifically for our presenters. The next slide, please. And here it is. Whenever you're in the Q&A box, you can type the questions directly there and we will be able to see them and you'll be able to see the replies. We have a number of CASAS employees here today that will be able to answer a variety of technical and managerial procedural questions. So go ahead and use that when you're ready and we'll be able to get started just in a couple minutes. So to answer the questions, yes, we will be recording this. We are right now. It will be posted hopefully by tomorrow morning. And the copies of the presentation, I'm just going to drop that in the chat real quickly, where you can go on casas.org to download a copy of today's presentations. So with that, I'd like to hand the meeting over to Linda Taylor to go over the agenda of topics for today. Linda?
Hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today. Here's what we're going to cover. We're going to give some interesting new things going on at CASAS in general. We're going to give you an update on remote testing. Following that, we will be having some guest speakers from Campbell Adult School. We're very happy to have them here to share how they're managing in these challenging times, and I think you'll find them quite delightful and very helpful in their practical advice. Then we will have Margaret Kirkpatrick present. She is the director of our National External Diploma Program, and she will present about the NEDP program and tell us that it is remote, stealing a little bit of your thunder. Then we will talk about our field testing opportunities, about our new training modules in this program year, and the next CASAS national webinar. So to get started with some updates, and this is, we have been telling you this before, but in case you haven't attended these before, we want to make sure everyone's aware that the approval periods for our ABE assessments, one of them has recently been extended, that is for math goals, and it is now approved through 2023. The reading goals is as it was before. For the ESL assessments that are NRS approved, the life and work reading, beginning literacy, reading for language arts if you happen to use it, and the life and work listening have also had their approval periods extended till February of 2023. And this is the case for all of the NRS approved ESL tests. As far as what's going on with what we are submitting with new tests, again, the ABE-ASC, we will be submitting for an extension of the approval period even beyond 2023 for math goals. And we are also working through, and that's why we need your help, with field testing for the final forms, field testing of the reading goals and listening goals for ESL. All of these new series, the goal series, are strongly aligned with the college and career readiness standards, and for ESL with the ELP standards. Something we're excited to share with you, this is very new. We've decided to open up for office hours with CASAS staff once a week, and that'll be Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific and 2 o'clock Eastern. This is a chance for you to get one-on-one support, ask any question you like. There's no agenda on our side. It's simply going to be driven by the folks who attend. So if you need help, suggestions, if you just need encouragement, not sure you're doing it right, we'll have tech support there. We'll have CASAS staff from different departments. And the first one is this coming Friday. So if you'd like to attend, you can register by following this link. Also, on our CASAS website on the far right, under the What's New, you'll see the first thing there is CASAS office hours registration. So please come, one, come all, and we look forward to seeing you there. Next thing we need to tell you is a little bit of housekeeping on the e-tests and TOPS Pro Enterprise side, and that is that we will be closing down the software from the 26th to the 29th. That's Thursday to Sunday of November, over the Thanksgiving break for many people. Hopefully that's an opportune time that won't interfere with your testing. So at that time, all logins to TOPS Pro Enterprise TE and e-tests will be disabled. Our next webinar, just so you're all aware, is going to be on Wednesday, November 18th. And so please go ahead and register for that. We look forward to seeing you there. And I hope you all know that all of our webinars are archived. So if you miss one, you can go back, and they're all recorded as well. And we do post the PowerPoints and other documents from our presenters. I want to make sure everyone is aware that in the individual skills profile, we have added the GED likelihood of passing. We have had that for some time for the HiSET, and that is in relation to our goals series. But recently we added the information for the GED. So if a student takes the reading or the math goals, you can decide if you would like to see their likelihood of passing for either the GED or the HiSET or both. And what it tells you is, and these names are slightly different for the different tests, but for the language arts section, what is their likelihood of passing? Is it high or medium or lower? And if it's medium, they may pass, but more study may be needed. And then if they really are not likely to pass, it also would say that as well. So on the next slide, you can see where this appears at the very bottom of the individual skills profile. So if you would like to set that up, you can do that in TE in the settings and add that to the individual skills profile for your students and teachers. The next thing I'd like to share with you is a silver lining of COVID, and that is that although it's been a challenge for many to access the technology, there has been an expanded use of technology. I heard someone recently say that we've made 3 years of progress in the last 6 months. So it has very much accelerated our use of technology. And one way that we at CASAS have experienced this is that there has been greater interest in transitioning into using CASAS e-tests. So we have more agencies that were using paper testing now using CASAS e-tests. And I would say that more agencies that were using both are now using CASAS e-tests more. So I want to share with you that in the last year, we had 350 new agencies around the country start using CASAS e-tests for the first time. And 166 of those started since COVID. And here you can see the highest numbers of new agencies starting to use e-tests in these states. So thank you all. We're excited to help anyone get started with e-tests at any time. We have a team that's ready to assist with that, as well as, of course, our tech support. And I want to share with you, I think, some information that you'll find interesting. What these next few slides show is Q1, that is July to September. And it's showing 4 years, 2017 to 2020, that is those 3 months, first quarter of these 4 years. So this blue bar is the 2017 first quarter, etc. So you can see some dramatic changes, and that California, as I think is understood, is known to be a very high CASAS user, and they have been the highest user over the past 4 years, and we can see the dramatic effect of COVID here. Florida, also a very big CASAS user. You can see their activity over the last 4 years. Our medium users, or sorry, high medium, Washington State, that you can see has not started doing remote testing or just now is starting perhaps. Michigan, it's been an increase. You can see these are our states that are our high medium users. Connecticut, Iowa, Illinois, Texas just started using CASAS in earnest last year. And then we have our, these are some graphs that show our remote testing only, not just e-testing, but only the remote testing. And here we can see that California, again, leads with about 8,000 in our same period, Q1 this year, followed by Texas, Michigan, and Illinois. And then we have medium-high users, New Jersey, Florida, Pennsylvania, DC, Iowa, and Maryland. And then we have some medium users. So some of you in these states may be just getting started. So we encourage you to keep going, and just thought you would all find that interesting to see how it's playing out right now across the country. Before actually I go to the reading level indicator, I'm going to show you a short animated video that shows something about CASAS e-testing. Okay. Let's see, sorry. I do need to, okay. All right. All right, so now we'll go back to the PowerPoint.
This is a demonstration on how to administer the CASAS reading level indicator.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're getting additional,
The reading level indicator, Form 601R,
sorry,
also known as the
right. Okay, now back to the PowerPoint. All right. So the reading level indicator is, as you can see, we do have a video about it, and that's the beginning of what you just heard, not on purpose. But that is to help you navigate through how to give it. And this is something that we developed recently. It's an informal assessment that can be used for provisional placement into NRS Table 4. This is something that the U.S. Department of Ed has suggested that programs can do if they're not able to give an NRS pretest when a student is at first enrolled. And this was reemphasized just this last week by Cheryl Keenan in a meeting with state directors that this is something that is that the department is encouraging and that they're focusing, they'd like everyone around the country to focus on serving students and to try to test them as soon as you can, but to make sure that serving them is your highest priority. So we developed this additional assessment as a way for you to do that with perhaps more precision than whatever you might have been using locally before. We call it the Form 601R, and it can be given without a proctor. It can be taken on a mobile phone, so that should make it easier for more of your students to take it without any kind of scheduling. There's an online version, and there's no charge for that for TOPS Pro Enterprise and eTest users, and there's also a paper version. The target audience for this is all ABE or ASE students, as well as ESL students, but only at level 3 or above. For the lower level students, you need to do some other kinds of screening to see which level they are at level 1 or 2. What you get is an estimated NRS EFL for either ABE or ESL or both, and you will not get a scale score. It's not that precise, and it's only meant to give you an estimated level. So just please remember that it's not an NRS approved test, and it may not be substituted for pre and post testing, but it's just for that initial placement if you need it. But please try to give an NRS approved pretest as soon as possible. So now a little bit on an update. Every month I do show this slide just to remind you that of course you can use remote testing to pre-test new students, and perhaps you're now just getting around to pre-testing the students that have been studying with you for some time. Also, of course, for post-testing, and even if you're doing on-site testing, you might consider using remote testing to post-test those students that are not comfortable coming in for on-site testing or who somehow could not attend when you were scheduling those post-tests. So that this remote testing is something that we really hope you will find ways to incorporate it into your program. It's not going away, and we think you'll see many, many benefits as time goes on to using it, not just in the mammoth way you're needing to use it now, but in the future as ways to complement your distance learning and to complement your regular assessment. We know many of you are uncertain about whether you're going to get back to doing on-site testing. Now, even if you are doing some on-site testing, you may be uncertain about whether you're going to be able to continue doing on-site testing. So I would say that uncertainty in either direction is very much what we're all experiencing these days. We all hope that the equity concerns that have surfaced very much during these times will soon get addressed, and that our students will be able to get access to more devices and better bandwidth. We, of course, recognize these concerns and their challenges for all of you. and the testing environment, which may not be private, may be noisy. So many challenges there as well when you're trying to do remote testing. But we have been encouraged, and hopefully you have, with students' willingness and determination to try to work through these barriers to get this done. And we know also that due to the limitations that we've had to put on the proctor student ratio of up to 5, that costs a lot of money to you and a lot of time for your staff. We are working with some programs now to see about doing more than 5. We've looked at some preliminary data, and the results so far are encouraging. That we have found that if we compare the mean test scores, that test performance is consistent among those taking remote testing as opposed to those taking non-remote or on-site tests. And in terms of how long it takes students, we're seeing that often getting them into the test is the hardest part, getting them set up with their devices, et cetera. But then once they get into the tests, they are finishing within the allotted time that is allowed for these NRS approved tests. So they're not needing to exceed those times is what we've seen. And in fact, some students have said that they feel more comfortable taking the test in their own home environment. Just quickly to show you, hopefully you're all aware that we have 4 approaches. Some of them are one-on-one. Some of them are with either one-on-one or multiple test takers with different kinds of devices. And we have detailed instructions on the website, which we will show you at the very end, time permitting. We are looking at some possible new directions. You know, these remote testing approaches are temporary, and we are looking for solutions that may be easier for you. We've, in fact, as I think you know, tried to make the current 4 approaches more efficient by adding easy ways to register stations with codes and in other ways. But some things we're looking at is we're just about this week to start piloting with some agencies. We put the word out last month, and thank you to those who responded. We got a very solid response from some really terrific agencies around the country who are eager to try out testing up to 12 students. These are programs that have already been testing, are comfortable with remote testing, and want to continue. We are going to be piloting listening, reading, and math on phones to see how it works, maybe not with everyone, but with some students who are comfortable with that. Integration of video conferencing with e-tests. And also, we are looking into a third-party proctoring service, depending on field interest in that option. Many of you are doing social distancing on site. Here are some tips. Some of these I've shared before, but you know, we recommend a large room, maybe a cafeteria. Cameras, if you install them, can help you see what's going on with students better. Plexiglass shields can help with the safety. And if you are doing paper testing, we recommend waiting 4 days to reuse those test booklets. There are different scenarios. Could be only remote testing if you can't get on site at all. Maybe you're on site, but in one room, or maybe you're on site in even a hybrid mode where you're on site in multiple rooms, or maybe you're in your program, you're doing both remote and on site testing. All of these are possible. Preparation, it's so important. Please take that time up front to get the student ready. Programs are doing a digital boot camp. You're going to hear more about that. Having technology navigators work with students, help them get started, get set up, involving more than just your proctors to help with the intake process, and using the native language. You're more than welcome to do that. And of course, e-test sampler to get students familiar with the test. Today, I'm just sharing this. This is a resource from Hacienda La Puente Adult School in California. Maria Teles was gracious enough to share these resources, and we don't have time today to go into depth, but I did want to make these links available to you They are testing agreements that students work with after they do their online registration, but before they do the testing. And they've found that when they use these resources and sign these agreements, they understand better what's expected of them. It reduces their testing time because they're already familiar. It helps them get set up with appointments and all of those things. And they've translated these into Chinese, Spanish, and Korean. So I'm not going to click these links right now, but I will. You will be able to access these in the on the website right after the webinar and look at them yourself. So we just didn't want to wait another month to provide you with these helpful resources, but and we'll ask Maria to come on as a presenter perhaps next month. So just a few quick reminders. Remote testing is only with our NRS approved tests using e-tests and not paper tests. The life and work listening, some people have wondered, is it permitted? Yes, it is. And in fact, if you haven't been testing with listening before, you might consider it because it is something that can work well with remote testing. You are not permitted to copy, scan, or reproduce CASAS tests. That's never possible, and certainly not now as well, nor send paper tests out to students or record the session. So please be creative, but within the limits that we've set in our guidelines. All right, so now I'm going to hand it over to Dr. Usha Narayanan, Director of Campbell Adult School, and Karen Weldon, who's the ESL Department Chair there.
I'm sorry, I unmuted myself, but it looks like it wasn't very effective. So I start all over again. I'm Usha Narayanan, as Linda mentioned, and I'm from Campbell Adult and Community Education. And I'm here with Karen, who tells me how to run the school, and I listen to everything that Karen tells me to do. So there you go, Karen.
Great. Thanks, Usha. I so appreciate that. Let me get to the front of this. Can everyone see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So thank you for that, Usha. I'll remember that in our next meeting. So, so basically what we want to talk about is how we are accommodating our students, how we're trying to retain the students and supporting them based on what we're all experiencing right now. And I am so grateful to CASAS and to Usha for supporting us as well. So thank you for both organizations and of course my director. So our history, and it's our history, it's your history, but I just wanted to put it in perspective. So of course, before March 13th, we noticed students started, no, I can't come to class. And then of course, shelter in place happened and staff didn't know what Zoom was. Students certainly didn't know what Zoom was. We needed a lot of help and we saw the numbers just continually dropping and we did not add any new students at all in the spring. So our changes were that we really needed immediate training and we needed to be fast on our feet, which, I've heard all schools do the same thing. You've all shared. But the challenge is we looked at it that they became opportunities, and that's what I want to talk about. So looking at this, of course, my screen won't go. There we go. So then our objectives, and this is where, having Usha as our director, it really became apparent that we could do a lot with our district and with Usha. So what we really were worried about is, how do we get, how do we get more students? And how do we retain them? But we were very, very interested in remote testing. But we also wanted to think about how do we accommodate the students with the inequity of devices, not really sure if they could, come to class. So we were just thinking of everything, all the different scenarios and how this was going to unfold and the unknowns. We didn't know if we were going to be on site part-time. So we were just grappling with so many different scenarios. And we wanted to make sure that we could offer supportive services, including digital training and technological devices to staff and students. So Usha, I'd like for you at this point, because our supportive services is so key to CASE. And if you would like to jump in here and talk about even our student advisors, I think that's really a key element of CASE.
So as all of us were grappling with lack of numbers dropping in our classes and not being able to find out why they weren't coming and what are the issues that they were facing and how we could make it easier for them to access our services, it became apparent that our student advisors should be at the forefront of anything that our students do. It's not just teach them coming to school, but how could student advisors help us? So everything from marketing to outreach, our student advisors were involved in that. And then when they did get to school, what is it that they needed? I mean, many of them might have equity issues, not having devices, or not being able to use a device. So our student advisors came to the forefront of doing intake with students and providing them all the services that they needed. So one of the key things that we did in the beginning of the year were there were 3 groups that we had throughout summer that worked on this. One was the ESL department. The other was our ABC, ABE, ASC department, which is our 2 big groups in our school. But the student advisors also met periodically throughout summer so that they could integrate their work with the curriculum work that was happening. So
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
So we had to get prepared, and we did. And the focus groups that Usha just referenced, biggest thing was a schedule change. And that took us over 5 weeks of focus group meetings. We had many different ideas. And again, we first thought it was going to be a hybrid model. We didn't realize that we were not going back in the fall until very late in the summer. So we had to keep changing the schedules. And then we changed our website. So we were just trying to do many, many things. OTAN, they were a lifesaver. There's no doubt about it. That first week after March 13th, everyone was on OTAN all day long. We tried everything. We went to every single PD that they offered because we were so unfamiliar with distance learning. And also during the summer, we created our own digital boot camp, which I will explain that in a few minutes. We also came up with designing homework help time within our schedule to make sure that the students, again, felt supported. And we trained our staff on remote testing, which I will show you more about that as we come up. So the schedule, oh my goodness. This is school-wide. This is not just one department, so it is on every program. So we do have 6 hours of synchronous time with the students. And, I heard it even yesterday in a meeting. I know some of you are on this meeting right now where we were talking about Zoom fatigue, that the teachers are just, and it's not just the teachers, it's the students, it's faculty, it's administrators, everyone's on Zoom. So we tried to come up with a reasonable schedule for people to be on Zoom. And the 6 hours seems to actually be working well. The students come, and they come more than they were coming when it was 3 hours on site. So that's pretty exciting. We also have 3 hours of homework help, which is also synchronous. So the teachers are available online, and the students, whether it's with appointments, whether it's teacher selected, whether it's student selected, whether it's small group requests, they come in and they actually get some assistance for using Google Classroom as part of our asynchronous work, where we post a lot of assignments. They have 4 hours of homework, which is very different for adult ed, for us, for our institution. So we're still coming up with a lot of hours that we can still post for attendance, because the students are still with us and they're handing in assignments and the teachers are grading them. And so that's worked out really well. We're thrilled with all of the work that we did during the summer on that. So now here, this is where Usha can certainly talk more about this, but one of the focus group items was we had to come up with an interest form. And we didn't even have this on our website back then. So this was a lot of conversation. And so Usha, when people fill this out, you can actually go through these steps. What are the next steps? What do we have?
So when this interest form is a short form, our students tell us which program they're interested in and which classes they're interested in. And as soon as our clerks in the office receive that form, it's a Google form, so they get the data it's on a spreadsheet. So immediately our office staff then sends the online registration form to the students, which is secure, which means we can collect the demographic information and telephone number, and not telephone number, I think comes in the interest form as well, but some other personal information, so that it's secure and it goes from the office staff directly to the student and back into the Google form. It's not an online form, so we do that. And then of course our entire office staff shares a Google spreadsheet where testing schedules are put in, and everybody knows how many people are coming in to test or how many students are going to be doing remote testing. So that is monitored by all office staff and all the people who are involved in testing. And then we set up a schedule of 12 students coming in to test at the site, and we'll show you a picture. We started with students testing outside our classrooms. And then of course, California, all of you who are from California will know the heat wave that hit us in August, late August, September, and then the fires and all of that. So we had to move our in-person testing indoors, washing stations, hand sanitizers, wiping things down. We removed all extra items from our computer labs. Only what is needed exists on the tabletops, and sanitizing. We followed everything. We were lucky that we were able to invite students into our sites. From district to district, these things are different, even within Santa Clara County where we are. So we did all of that. So right now we are testing students inside in our labs. And just for people to know, we do not put students in the class before we do pretest. That's just how we do it at our school. Pretest is done and then placement is done. So that's kind of how we handle testing.
So what we did, we knew though that because of COVID, seeing how our students reacted in March, we tried thinking about remote testing back in May. And I know all of us back in May were like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So I will talk about that we've actually implemented remote testing. So yes, you see that we have students on site, and we're very fortunate that we could get close to the buildings at first because of the Wi-Fi. And I've heard a lot of what you've done in your parking lot situations. But before we came back to school, this was what was really important, is that we offered professional development to the staff for 1 week, which we have never had that opportunity. And so again, this is something I think Usha should expand on as to why it was a necessity and what it provided for our staff.
So attendance is important, collecting attendance hours is important, but at the same time, we were in such unprecedented times, just as everybody is. So just kind of give you an idea of where our teachers were at that time, even with all the thanks to OTAN for all the training that they did. There was so much that they were trying to grapple with. Plus the emotional toll it takes on people with all that was going on in their personal lives. So it wasn't easy. So what we wanted to do was we actually wanted them to have build back like community in the school, people to check in with each other and have time to ask and answer questions. So that was important. So that's kind of, and to go into the classroom feeling that they had been supported, they knew what they could do, what they could handle, and have who was going to support them if they had more questions about it. How was Karen going to support them? How were the student advisors going to support them? So that was important. And for administrators in this group, I just want to say this means there's some bargaining unit issues that you may have to deal with, but our district supported us in having a whole week of professional development, which I think the district itself did not provide their high school teachers, but we did. We started classes, the teacher contract, whatever it was, 1 week of us was devoted without teaching, just for teachers to have professional development. And it was important for classified staff as well to have that. So it was important we did that. And job descriptions at this point, our campus supervisor, what is he doing? There's no campus where students are coming. So I had to negotiate with CSEA to kind of see that he helps us in a different way than what he traditionally does for us. So these were some of the things that we put in place. And then of course, teachers were given professional development on what does a digital boot camp for students looks like. So they got training in technology, but they knew how to deliver digital boot camp thanks to our leadership team, which includes Karen, for putting that together. And you'll see that in a minute. And then we had a lot of training for students who are coming in later after the 1 week of class. As we start placing students in the class, we had training for them, and our student advisors are carrying that bulk of that training as their load, either training them one-on-one or small group training. And it includes in-person training and Zoom training for all students who are coming in after our first 1 week of digital boot camp. Students are assessed for their technology needs, and we provide Chromebooks for students who do not have a device that they can work with. So we have Chromebooks for students, and then we have provided laptops for all staff, including our CSEA members, our classified staff, and our teaching staff, including our instructional aides. We've provided them laptops and hotspots if they have unstable. We have 5 or 6 people working in the home, including kids. So if everyone is on Zoom, the bandwidth is not there. So we've provided hotspots for staff. So our training included digital boot camp, technology, Burlington, how to do distance learning, racial justice PD, because equity and racial justice is important to us, attendance hours, how to take attendance in our system. And I can't think of other things that we did, but it was a 1 week of morning and afternoon, at least 6 hours every day for teachers to have training. So Karen, I hope I've covered everything.
You sure did. Thank you. Thank you. So digital boot camp, and I'll be happy to share this with all of you. It is, we took a whole week for our first week of school, where we went through this with our students to make sure that they understood, you know, the Zoom toolbars. And so choice boards, again, thank you, OTAN. We love choice boards. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but you can just click on any link within the choice board and it takes you right to the slide that you want to actually present to your students. Of course, the choice board is used for assignments as well, but just showing them how to stop their videos and how to turn their their audio off and on, how to use the chat. So this was important for us and it worked really well. We still use it, as Usha just said, we use it for open enrollment. But now, what is this all about? Remote testing as an alternative method. The purpose was we had to address the needs of the students who could not come to the campus, whether it be health, whether it be daycare, transportation. I know I have some students, 2-year-old and 4-year-old is sitting on her lap during class. She cannot go on campus. So we have started the remote testing. We are happy to actually explain how we did it. We have a slide presentation that we put together just for our staff that goes over all of what CASAS put together, but we just broke it down, baby steps for our staff. We modified the email that goes out to the students to inquire about their device because some of our staff is better versed in Mac or an iPad versus a PC. And so we wanted to make sure for remote testing that the right proctor would actually have that student during the remote testing. So yes, CASA's website, fantastic, but what were the game changers for us? I have to say 2 things, and it was really that CASAS came up with the registration codes. That changed everything for us because the original, if you remember back in the spring, CASAS was like, oh, you're gonna give them your username and password. And we were all like baffled. How are we gonna do that in a remote control testing environment? But when they came up with the registration codes, that was like deal breaker. We're gonna do it. Now we can actually start this. So we start the remote testing. We've actually had one very low student that it had to be an oral assessment, which I was shocked, but we've done ASE, we've done ESL. We're all feeling a little bit more confident. We have 14 staff members who have been trained. So that includes our instructional aides. They've gone through the proctoring module. They filled out their remote testing proctor agreement. And we now have 10 staff members who are always available every week for the appointments. So we're very fortunate at CASE that we have all of the students available, our staff. And then retention, of course, that's our main thing. What is this all about? We've accommodated, we've tried to support our students, but now are we actually keeping them? So we're gathering the data. We are, as Usha said, we have lots of online tools available for our curriculum. So we thank all of those lovely publishers. And of course, we're doing Zoom and Google Classroom. HiSET, because ETS is remote testing, we have 5 graduates thus far in our ASE program. And we attribute remote testing as it really is something we all need to get on board so we can get our MSGs. And so we're really excited that we have our 5 graduates in the month of October. It's so soon. And EL Civics, we're actually starting our testing next week for a co-op. We did our post-testing this week. So we've got a lot going on. And yes, we will be doing remote testing for EL Civics as well for those students that cannot go on site and do a written exam. So we're really excited. We think remote testing is a necessity, just like CASAS has been telling us. Our next steps, We have not done the 1 to 5. So we're taking baby steps. So that's our next step. We've only done the 1-to-1, and we know we have to do it because we know the flu season is upon us, and we know that COVID could have another resurgence. So that's where CASE is at. And I really want to, again, thank CASAS for constantly looking at the process, trying to make it easier for us. The additional videos have been fabulous. So kudos to everyone at CASAS. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I will stop sharing.
All right. Thank you so much, Karen and Usha. We really appreciate everything you've shared. And I know I speak for everyone to say that it was very useful to hear everything you've gone through and all the great steps you've taken. I know we had some questions for you, and maybe now that you've stopped presenting, you can take a look at the Q&A and maybe answer some of them.
Okay.
And then we're going to go ahead and continue. Hopefully you can all see my screen. I'm going to introduce Margaret Patrick, who's going to talk about the NEDP, National External Diploma Program. Go ahead, Margaret.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Going off mute is always, a thing that you never know what happens here. Hello, thank you so much for this opportunity to share information about NEDP, the National External Diploma Program. NEDP is a program serving adults who previously didn't have a pathway to fit their particular needs, their pathway to a high school diploma. That is, they didn't test well, or they don't have enough time to attend classes, or they could benefit from an opportunity to use their acquired skills to demonstrate competency. CASAS is pleased to announce that the NEDP program through Mercy Learning Center of Bridgeport, Connecticut, is one of the first 4 innovators recognized in the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Continuing Technical and Adult Education, OCTAE, Advancing Innovations in Adult Education. And we want to congratulate Mercy Learning Center for this recognition. So what is NEDP exactly? It is a pathway to a high school diploma that allows adults and out-of-school youth to build a portfolio through a series of simulations that parallel job and life situations, and now has an entirely remote offer. Our remote functionality employs a combination of e-tests and a remote function embedded in the program for conducting a writing assessment and periodic meetings with NEDP staff. The NEDP program uses a combination of a Zoom or other platform and an external camera, usually a phone, to ensure program security. NEDP training has been available through webinars for several years, and now it includes training in conducting the remote functions. And these remote functions are now a permanent part of the program. 91% of our agencies in our 9 states are offering this remote function. We were pleasantly surprised to find that our NEDP agencies had an amazing record of participant participation last spring, that is from February to May, higher than most data shows for other adult programs. They were finding that students were very committed to continuing their high school diploma pathway and that the remote function worked for them. NEDP agencies are also finding that they are better able to serve new participants this fall, and our enrollment is higher than it was at this time last year. And I think we have a short visual sample of our enthusiasm for NEDP.
All right, this time I'll try to show the whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you, Linda. And I would just say for more information, please contact us through the CASAS website. NEDP has a lot of information there, and we certainly are available for more information. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Margaret. And now I'm going to actually show you the other video from the beginning. So here we go. This is the one on e-tests. So we have some other topics to cover today, or that we had thought to cover, but we don't have a whole lot of time. So I am going to ask Karen Berger to briefly tell you about field testing opportunities, and then we will stop at the top of the hour. And those of you who would like to stay on, we have a few other topics. We'd especially like to tell you about the training modules. So I'm going to ask Karen to cover this topic, and then those of you, I know some of you may have to leave on the hour, but then we'll carry on for another 5 minutes or so for those who'd like to stay. So Karen, go ahead.
Thanks, Linda. Okay, so, many programs are getting back into the swing of things, adjusting to the new normal since mid-March, and field testing is no exception. But I'm very happy to report that some agencies have recently resumed field testing, some face-to-face, and others are administering field tests remotely. So any one of you who's expressed interest in assisting us with our research, either now or for the spring semester, thank you so much. It's such a vital part of developing new tests, and in order to get our assessments approved, we need your learners to participate. So we use the info we collect from the field test to develop assessments that are valid and reliable for all adult learners. Next slide, please. So we're in the final phases of field testing, and this is where we do our final form studies. These will eventually be pre and post tests, and they will replace the current Life and Work series with 5 skill levels rather than 3 in both listening and reading for ESL. Next slide, please. So this is our time frame for these studies. As you can see, any ESL students or those whose are ABE students whose first language is not English, we can do it in e-test and paper pencil, on-site, remotely. And it doesn't affect your regular program testing. Students get gift cards, and an agency who participates will receive 100 complimentary web test units. So next slide, please. As I said, we need thousands of students to participate so we can thoroughly conduct our research and submit these new assessments for NRS approval. And even if you're unable to participate at the moment, we hope you'll consider it in the upcoming months. You can visit our webpage, and there's a button on the CASAS homepage, as you can see in that little graphic, take you right to the field testing page, and you'll find resources including frequently asked questions and study descriptions of the current opportunities. So you can just email fieldtesting@casas.org, and we'll get back to you with more info and answer any questions you might have. So thanks so much, and I hope to hear from you. Back to you, Linda.
All right, thanks, Karen. So at this point, we are at the top of the hour. So if you need to go, please do. And thank you so much for attending today. Just to reassure you, all of this, the recording and the materials will be on our website. So now if you can stay and would like to hear about training updates, I'm going to ask Dawn Montgomery to please go ahead at this point.
Great, thank you, Linda. Hi, folks. We are pleased to give you a training update today. And if you have any questions about CASAS training, please email training@casas.org. Now, Linda, if I may share my screen, I would like to take folks to the online destination to CASAS training. Upon arriving, you will notice that CASAS implementation is now offered in 4 new online self-paced training modules based on implementation type. So if you plan to implement CASAS e-tests, you will need to complete Module 1 and 2. Module 4 is recommended. And if you plan to administer paper tests, you will need to complete Module 1 and 3. Again, Module 4 is recommended. You will notice that Module 1 is required in both of these types of implementation. So if you plan to use e-tests and paper tests, you will only need to complete Module 1 once. This is because Module 1 is for CASAS implementation basics, which is universal across all types of implementation. Now, Module 4 is included in each type of implementation because it is highly recommended for all CASAS users to get the most benefit from interpreting test results and reports. Now, with these new modules, we reorganized the training site into categories containing the modules required for that type of implementation. So not only is the online training site your destination to CASAS training, it is also your one-stop shop to fulfilling the training required for each type of implementation. Completion of these online training modules certifies individuals to use CASAS materials and does not certify individuals to train others. Now, with the release of the new implementation training modules, we officially retired the standalone implementation basics training and beyond implementation basics training typically used for recertification. So if your state or program has asked you to recertify for CASAS implementation in the current program year, you will need to complete at least 2 of the 4 implementation training modules matching your program's implementation of CASAS. The content presented across all 4 new online training modules is updated and will be a great refresher for those seasoned CASAS users. We will have new recertification modules available starting July 1, 2021. And that's it for today's update on CASAS training. Linda?
Thank you, Dawn. Let me go back to showing you the slide you did see before, but just to remind you that next month, our webinar is on Wednesday, November 18th, same time, 11 Pacific and 2 o'clock Eastern. Here are some emails, which I think have been flashing through the Q&A and the chat box for the last hour, but just to have them all on one page. If you have a general kind of question, if you have an orders question, tech support, training, go live means you want to get started with e-tests. And if you want to talk to us about remote testing, so please use these links to reach us. So that brings us to the end of our session today. Let's see if we still have some questions open. I'll ask Janice. We can stay open for a few more minutes to finish answering questions. Would that be a good idea?
No, I saw a couple questions that were for the case ladies, for Karen and for Usha. Just for perspective, the size of your agency, could you describe a little bit for us, like either approximately the number of students or how it's distributed between ESL versus HSD, HSE, or your CTE students? Do you have a moment? Can you share with us a little bit about that, please? Go ahead and unmute yourself, Karen, or
there we
Usha,
go.
if you...
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we have we're not terribly large. We have about 300 students for ESL. And of course, before COVID, we had even off-site locations, which we do not have that now. So we are only offering classes, of course, remotely, but even our off-sites, we're not even doing that for them, like the libraries in our elementary schools. So about 300 ESL. And on our ASE, which we're hearing, of course, throughout California, is we are actually seeing an uptick in numbers during the pandemic. So our classes are full. Even our Spanish HSC has over 40 students attending at night on Zoom. So it's really amazing what's going on with ASC side, but I don't know the real exact numbers since, you know, I'm on the ESL side and Usha had to bow out for another meeting. I think she had typed it in, Janice, but I'm not sure if she had responded. Good, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
And then one other thing, Janice, I know everybody's been asking about the digital boot camp. I have actually just converted it to a PowerPoint. So I'll send it to Karen Berger. And then Karen, if you want to insert it into the other slide, that would be great. But I know there's been a lot of requests for that and people could not open it because it is a Google slide at the moment.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that.
Sure.
Are there any other outstanding questions?
Well, today I think we've seen a great variety of questions in the Q&A. Some of the ones we're going to take offline to discuss in a little bit more detail. Some are state specific and others are more broad about becoming a test proctor and becoming certified, looking at resources for reports. So I think pretty much we've covered the broad spectrum of them so far. Linda, if there's anything specific you see that you want to address?
No, but I would like to just take a second to say that the link for the CASAS office hours here is under the What's New. This is the CASAS homepage, casas.org. And this is where you can find anything and everything about remote testing by clicking this button. It takes you to the page with all of the videos and information about all of the approaches. Also here under What's New is where you can register for the office hours and where you can find the information about the next and the previous archived webinars. Let's see what happens here. I'll take okay. So someone mentioned that the link wasn't working maybe in the PowerPoint, but it is working on the CASAS website. And so when you click on it, you will see the upcoming Fridays, and they each have their own registration link. So if you want to participate this Friday, click here, and you'll be able to enter that Zoom meeting to be part of that office hours session. So that's all I think. With that, we'll close. Thank you again for joining and hope to see you again next month.